back, folks. Today's going to be the last video in the series on restoring this 1971 Honda SL125 in candy emerald green. It's been a year now that I've been working on this project, and I certainly appreciate all the viewers that have stayed with me during this entire process, as well as some of the new folks we picked up along the way. I certainly appreciate your staying with me during this restoration series. You've already seen me run the bike very briefly previous to this. A little brief clip there that I shot. Just to let you know, the bike had not been run in 2 weeks or so when I shot that video, which was yesterday. And it started on the first kick and settled right down to a nice easy idle. I did test the clutch and the transmission and the brakes, and everything works just fine, so I'm very happy with that. And be aware that I ran the bike without fuel in the tank. There's not been any fuel in this tank yet. There never will be, actually. I just charged the carburetor with fuel, filled it up, and just did a little brief up and down, right up and down the driveway. So the tank is entirely dry. A couple other things I want to talk about before we go out and take a look at the finished product. I did use this advertising brochure, which I think I shared with you once before. This is an original. And I used this image to help guide me on the final assembly and attachment of the bodywork and tins, the routing of the cables at the front wheel, and the general fit and assembly of how Honda originally put this bike together. So this was my guide. The other thing I want to mention is during this next part of the video, I can't flip up the seat and show you what's underneath the seat because the seat is bolted on. And you've already seen much of what's under the seat in previous videos. Anyway, Honda changed from a bolt-on seat such as this model to a flip-up, I think with the XL series when they changed the nomenclature from SL to XL. I couldn't swear to it, but I think that's when they went to a flip-up seat. So that was a couple of model years after this particular bike. So now we're going to go outside and we're going to do a little walkabout, a reveal, if you will, of the bike with the tins mounted on it in the sun. It's not going to be a real long review. Most of this you've already seen. Most of the bike you've already seen except for the finished bodywork. So we'll just give you a little flavor of what it looks like today as we're bringing this project to a close. Before we move on to taking a look at the finished project outside, I thought I'd just give you a little view of the parts, the leftover parts or the old parts that were removed from the original project. And these are spread out here in this piece of corrugated in no particular order. I think the only thing that's missing from this shot is the seat pan, the original seat pan, and the foam and the cover, and I'm not sure where those are at. I think they're over on one of the shelves behind me, but I didn't bother digging those out. But the rest of these parts, pretty self-explanatory. Yeah, the original meters over there in the corner. Miscellaneous parts, shock absorbers down here. I'd like to draw your attention over into this section right here, and that's all of the engine parts. So we have the crankshaft, the clutch pack, the transmission right here, the shift rotator or drum. Keep in mind that this engine has been completely gutted and everything obviously was replaced. The engine had water in it at one time, so really the only thing of the original engine that remains are the cases, the cylinder head, and the camshaft and rocker arms. Everything else, including the crank, transmission, clutch pack, shift drum, the shift shaft, that is the shaft that goes through the engine and activates the shift forks, all of that was replaced from multiple different engines. If I recall, the crankshaft came from one engine, the clutch pack and the transmission came from a second engine. I think the shift drum, the rotator right there, came with that set of parts. I replaced the cam chain with a new chain, and then rebuilt pretty much everything else. Bored the cylinder, new piston, of course. That's the original piston. I had to go oversized because the cylinder had some fairly deep rust in it, and I boarded, I think it was either second or third over. I don't recall anymore without looking, but Pretty much all the internals were replaced from multiple engines during the course of the rebuild. Again, the rest of this is just various miscellaneous parts, cables, and there's a rectifier over there, bits and pieces. What I couldn't salvage, I couldn't reasonably rechrome or repair, or I just replaced it. In some cases, like the chain guard, you can see right here, the chrome chain guard, that is in actually very rough shape. It has some tears in it and some rips in the metal. It was just easier for me to buy a good used one and rechrome it than go through the effort of welding and grinding and repairing this one and then having it rechromed. As I recall, it wasn't terribly expensive. So I thought you'd be interested in seeing all the leftover parts. Sometimes people ask me, what do I do with all of these parts when I'm done with the project? Generally, they all get disposed of because they're of no use to anybody. The screws over here out of the engine cases are all damaged. The heads have been stripped. They're rusty. They're really of no use, and those are easily replaced. There's no real need to keep those screws. They're not of use. And all the rest of these parts, again, they're scrap at this point. They're even the meters over here. Perhaps the speedometer could be rebuilt. The tachometer is really just destroyed. The case has been destroyed. The internals might work, I'm not sure, but I will go through all of these parts and make a decision, but the vast majority of them, if they're really not reasonably salvageable or of use to someone else, they will be disposed of. They'll be recycled if they're metal, of course. If there's anything here that I think could be salvaged, then I will separate that out and I will label it and put it in all those parts in their own box and either eBay them off or just keep them in my inventory. So let's move on to taking a look at the project itself, and it's finished. Well, there she is, folks, the completed SL125 restoration, 1971 model. A moment ago you did see me ride it for the first time. I did not include a lot of video of that because frankly it's kind of boring, but you did get a flavor. It did run out just fine. Everything worked okay. I charged the carburetor with fuel and then just went up and down the driveway and make sure it shifted, clutch worked, brakes worked, and everything was fine. So I'm happy with that. This will really bring this video series on the SL125 to a close. There might be another video when I get the advertising banner done. I have that out for printing right now. I think most of you that have followed me before know that I like to create a banner, an advertising banner, as a representative of this model. So don't have that back yet. Probably be another week or two, and then I might do a little follow-up. But other than that, the project is appreciably complete. The mirror here on the left handlebar control, that is a Honda mirror. It's not new. It's in reasonably good shape. It's a little bit scruffy, so I had forgotten to order one of those. So I do have that coming, so I'll just swap that out. It'll look just like the one you see here. And the hose clamps that go from the fuel petcock down to the carburetor, those little springy clamps, I do not have the right size in my inventory for that hose clamp, so I have to order those the next time I put in a parts order. But other than that, I think everything else is pretty much done. So allow me to disconnect the camera here, remove it from the tripod, and then we'll do a little walkabout. You'll have to forgive me if we get a little wind noise. The breeze is starting to come up. This is mid-morning. By the way, it's been exactly a year since I started this project. This is summer of 2021. I started this project in July of 2020, so it's been a year. I could have done it in less than a year if I really wanted to, but that really wasn't the point for me. You can see the body work is obviously mounted, and you can see the side covers with the emblems there. Those came out really good. I didn't have any issues with that. You'll notice on the keys there, that little key fob, the Honda key fob, I like to install those on all my restorations. And besides, I think it being a nice touch, it also protects the frame from those keys flopping around whether the key switch is here or up between the meters. On some bikes they are. It just protects everything around the keys from the keys jangling back and forth. Let's walk around to the back of the bike. I'm hand holding the camera, so just bear with me on this. See my shadow there, obviously. The plate, that's a new plate. That was a never issued license plate. I'm not sure if I talked about that before or not, but that was a brand new plate. It's a 1971. It's appropriate for this model year, obviously. You can see here the new kickstart lever. That is both the pedal itself and the arm are NOS. They weren't terribly expensive. I think I'm into both pieces for like $40 US. A little bit of wind there coming up. And that did address the issue with that pedal being kittywampus and at an angle and my foot slipping off. One other note on that pedal, I would have sworn the original was chromed. So I had it re-chromed. However, both of those two pieces are just zinc plated. A few light clouds today, so you might see the sun coming in and out a little bit. There is a little mark on the exhaust system right down here where the kick pedal wants to just brush it when it push it through, or kick it through. I might have to adjust that exhaust system a little bit more to get it back out of the way, and I'll have to touch up that little mark. It's not bad. Most of this you've seen before. Everything does work now. The headlight, high-low beam indicator on the meter. Switches all work. Taillight, brake lamp, actuated by both the handlebar control as well as the foot pedal. That all works. I hope the sun doesn't wash this out too much. And again, we got a little bit of breeze. And I'm doing this in the morning just because I'm concerned about the breeze coming up this afternoon or later today. I think the color came out really, really nice. And now that I have the seat mounted, I think it's beautiful actually. Let's take a look at the meters. You can see there what the controls look like. One thing I also did, I rerouted the tachometer cable. This is according to the Honda advertising brochure I have. The way it comes up here, I had it incorrect before. And this makes a lot of sense because it keeps the cable away from that hot exhaust system. So that makes a lot of sense to me. It was a fun project to do. One of the things that made it fun is parts are reasonably available. And I didn't have to really fight to get parts like some projects you have to just really work at it to get parts. The Yamaha YL1 was an example of that. That was one of the biggest challenges I had with that project. It wasn't that the project itself was so complicated, but getting parts for it proved to be a bit of a challenge sometimes. There, the sun's coming out. I think you can see how that looks. So I'm going to call this video a wrap, folks. That's going to be it for this review. Pretty straightforward. Again, we probably will do one more video, but it won't be of the bike. It'll probably be of the banner when I get it here in a week or two, or whenever I get around to it, to shooting that video. I don't have a banner yet. I'm still waiting for it to be delivered. That's going to be it for today. A little wind noise there. Any issues, questions, thoughts, drop me a note. Otherwise, as usual, thanks for watching.